you please tell me what is the connection between having ghee, makhan, doodh with diabetes?
Inflammation, especially doodh, and the makhan that you're getting today is not makhan anymore. It's not the makhan that we made at home with churning the milk and the curd. It's not made like that. It's made with a lot of chemicals and additives, and it's also saturated fat. So milk and dairy products contain saturated fat, and in excess, saturated fat is our cells have this thin layer of fat, the phospholipid layer, which is a fat layer, and it's very pliable. It can move. It's supposed to be pliable.
Okay.
But when you start consuming these saturated fats, the layer on the cells becomes thicker. Because these fats don't contain omega-3. Now, the only fat that's really pliable and helps our cells to be more fluid is omega-3. To have the smoothness and the fluidity of the cell to allow the nutrients to pass. Now, that happens when you consume good amount of unsaturated fats, but especially omega-3 fatty acids. And when you consume a lot of dairy, you're consuming a lot of saturated fat that lines your cells, and that makes your cells very rigid. And that increases the chances of insulin resistance, because it's like the receptors for insulin are on your cell lining and the outside layer. Now, it's like the lock fitting into the key. So the lock is trying to fit in, but this is such a thick layer that it can't get to the key. There's blockage on the lock. So the key can't fit in. Can't open it, can't put the glucose in. So that causes insulin resistance. And also, like I said, the amount of toxins and the antibiotics and all the hormones that are getting into the milk, they are highly inflammatory. And that inflammation increases insulin resistance. So your cells are really, these poor guys are always taking in stuff from outside, getting into them. So they have to be very vigilant what's coming in. So if there's a lot of toxicity and inflammation around in the body, they'll shut down. So they'll be like, I can't let this enter the cell. Body in its wisdom is always trying to protect us. Yeah. Always.
That's so interesting, because when we think about diabetes, straight away, hum sochte hain sugar. Straight away. But if you're saying that animal products like milk and butter and ghee are high in saturated fat, and cause inflammation in the body, which is directly then causing diabetes.
Yes.
All of us who grow up eating meat, dairy, eggs, all saturated fat.
Yeah.
So then when we look at the data, it's making sense why in India we have such a high degree of diabetes in correlation with the high degree of dairy consumption. But when you ask anyone, people will say the reason why Indians have such high diabetes is because of the amount of carbs. Yeah. So they'll say that vegetarians have high incidences of diabetes because they eat so many carbs and they have so much sugar.
Yeah.
Omitting dairy from that entire conversation.
What the thing with dairy is also, it contains IGF-1, which is insulin like growth factor 1, which is like a growth hormone that also increases insulin resistance in the body. So we definitely don't want hormones from the animal because it's not the same profile. The hormone profile of a cow is very different from the hormone profile of a human. And then that also causes a lot of disturbance in our own delicate, intricate balance of hormones in our body. And that eventually also leads to insulin resistance. But like you rightly said, it's always considered that Indians get diabetes or, they have diabetes because of carbs and sugar, which to an extent is not wrong, because the amount of carbs and sugar that we consume, a high carb diet and a high sugar diet. By a high sugar diet, what I mean is white sugar, refined carbs, maida. If that's high, it increases the triglycerides in your blood, and high triglycerides, high cholesterol eventually leads to metabolic issues and insulin resistance. So indirectly, yes, but we always completely miss out the saturated fat factor, and we miss out the bad fat factor in our diet, which is coming from dairy. the cholesterol that's coming from dairy, the hormones that I spoke about that's coming from dairy, which also leads to insulin resistance.